Hello, my name is SvenP. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this Disney-style castle with the new Princess Castle Gallery. They look great, and I'm placing all of them out right here so that I would be able to take the props that I would need for this build. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And also, consider using code SvenP1205 because it really helps me out a lot. I started off by creating just one wall area, and I'm making that wall with this big square tower here that I'm stretching out a little bit. I'm gonna place a lot of them next to each other because the purple part I think looks really cool. I like how it sticks out. I like that there's kind of crenulated walls kind of on the outside. I'm also placing some windows on the front and the back here. I'm actually going to change the gold so that the inside of the window is pointing outwards because I like the gold. It sort of fits the Disney castle vibe to have gold be on the outside. All of these things had to be stretched out a little bit for it to fit, but that wasn't too hard. Make sure you have build to prop off. That's how you'll be able to resize these types of props and place them on a more specific grid than the standard one. I intended for this castle to be gigantic, so the copy-paste function is an absolute must for a build like this. When using that, you will be able to first make one detailed part of your build, like the wall that I'm making right now. As long as it's less than 100 props, then you'll be able to copy-paste that and place that all over the place. Then you can make something huge but detailed at the same time. So what you can see from this build was first, that I made just one part of that wall with the one tower, with the window and one roof on top of it. And then I placed a lot of the copied version of that next to each other, which is what I have right now. And now I'm adding a little bit of detail to that, like for example these, whatever you want to call archways upside down or something. Just to make it look a little grounded to the ground, to have something bend. I make it look like it widens out a little when it goes down to the ground. You can also see that I put a little block in between to close some gaps. And now I'm playing some upside down towers next to each other to make the wall a little bit taller. I mean, the wall a little bit taller. I placed these walls on a circle. I wanted the castle to be round, but not a perfect circle. I wanted the roundness to be so that it would be a little wider on the left side and the right side, but the front part of the castle would be a little closer to the middle, and also the same with the back part. So therefore, I got a circle from the ring gallery, a fabulous purple circle, stretched it out a little bit and changed the shape a little bit more to my liking. I spent a little time here just thinking, just to make sure I would be able to get the walls on the right spot, because if I didn't get it on the right spot, I'd have a lot of removing props to do, you know, because there was 100 props on each of these walls. So take your time, just make sure it ends up on the right spot here. But also, it doesn't need to be 100% exactly the right spot, because nobody is gonna notice if you make some tiny mistakes. Considering the scale of these things, if something is 5 centimeters too far to the left or whatever, you know, no one is gonna notice. No one cares. And also, it actually, a tiny bit of asymmetry makes the build look a little bit more natural. Sometimes. I placed several different types of towers around the castle and the outer walls. Some of them being the square tower props, just stretched out to be gigantic. What all of these towers had in common was one thing. They were all stretched out a lot. This made them really easy to build. But it's also presented a new problem. When things are out of scale like this, the build ends up looking very confusing because, on one hand, you have very stretched out things looking quite small actually, because they don't have any detail on them. And each detailed piece, like windows, crenulated walls, the roofs, plants, they're very big. So now the whole tower actually looks super tiny because something that's super big, but all the details on it is very big as well. It's kind of like confusing your eye and making it look like it's just close to you or big or whatever. But the detailed walls that I built in the beginning of this video are looking really big because all the details on them are so small. So things look very out of proportion here, which is why I needed to fix this. And how am I gonna fix this? Of course, I'm just gonna add some tiny detail to the gigantic stretched out towers. So I'm replacing the crenulated walls here, or not exactly replacing, but placing something else on top of it. And then the crenulation in the middle here actually starts looking like a window instead of some like wall thing or whatever. And the windows that I put on a little earlier also makes it look more detailed, and the proportion gets a little better because of it. So what I'm doing right here is basically just building one of these towers that are already a prefab. I'm just making it a lot bigger, and like I was saying earlier, I'm later going to just add extra detail to it so that it will look more in proportion with the build and look like it's very, very big instead of just being, you know, something stretched out. So these windows here specifically, if you build this yourself or build something like this yourself, just drop this part where you make these windows. Just make things without these windows and put on some custom windows later, because these windows, they just look bad considering their size. They're just completely out of proportion. I didn't want to cut this part of the video out though, because here, for example, you can see that they're all being stretched out to different sizes, and they need to be at a specific size in order to snap correctly to each other. And also placing this tower here at the end, because of the way that you can't see the bottom of it because the bottom of it is so far away. It gets a little difficult to place them. A trick in order to help with that, which I didn't learn until later in this video, is that you just copy paste that piece and another piece that is a lot lower than the tower, and then when you copy paste both of those, the tower will start off a lot higher, and then you'll be able to see the bottom of it. And then after you place it, then you just remove the thing that you copy pasted on the bottom. The front door, I wanted to look very spectacular. I love these roof pieces and how they look from the front. And we can now make amazing front gate areas because of the details on these new building pieces that comes with the Princess Castle Gallery, whatever it's called. I made a lot of roofs here to create the spectacular gate that I was looking for, and I thought it turned out great. I would like to point out that a lot of boring detailed work of this video is going to be cut out because I don't want this video to be 5 hours long. But I'm only going to cut out the irrelevant parts that I don't think you guys really care that much about. And those parts were just of tedious processes that aren't really going to be that interesting or show much of the building process. And it's not really going to matter at the end of the day. Speaking of which, I spent quite some time making the nature for this castle here because I wanted it to look and feel like the setting was right. But this is a castle video, which is why a lot of this is cut out. I'm just gonna show you the most important summary parts of the nature building process. I like to put a bunch of different trees together and just copy paste them onto the map until I feel like it's enough variety. Much of the mountains was placed later because I felt like it would be easier to first place a forest. The mountains, or rocks, or whatever you want to call it, that are around here are really nice props, because when they are put on top of each other, they overlap in a way that makes them look like they're just the same prop, just bigger, instead of having it look like there's a bunch of things that are like overlapping each other in a weird way. It actually looks like it's just one big prop, which is awesome. I'm here again placing some windows over the stretched out windows, because these windows will have a little bit of detail to them. That's gonna make the whole build look a lot more in proportion, like I've been talking about. So also just adding these windows in here, that helps a lot, even though the window frames are still a little bit too big. But adding these bushes here as well sort of normalizes it, I feel. Also, I had a little turret, as you can see on the side of the tower here. Tiny little turrets like that really help. So the next part here, which is probably my favorite part of this whole build, is this bridge. So with the Princess Gallery, it adds some staircases that has a strange, interesting roundness to them, and also some ceilings that are also round in that way. And then you can make these really interesting shapes, where first there's stairs, you walk up the stairs, and then it gets a little bit wider where there's that circle. And where I have that circle, I'll have some pillars there, and I'll eventually add some rose bushes arching over the bridge, which is gonna look really, really cool. I just have to stretch them out a little bit, and it looks amazing. And then I'm adding a little fence to all of these round parts here. And also these round parts here, I'm just using these tower round wall blocks in order to connect this to the ground here. This part is actually more of a stairway than a bridge actually, but I will have a bridge go further back as well. It looks really nice the way that on some parts of this stairway it's straight, it's a wall, and on other parts it's round. It adds a lot of depth to it. It looks great, I think. And then I'm just adding some more stone here just to make it look like it's kind of like built in the nature. Looks very smooth. I'm gonna do that on both sides. And then for the actual bridge, these will be doorways that are used for the bridge. And the way that this water makes them sort of reflect a little bit makes it look like it's a very smooth transition from the water to the bridge. Also the railings in this, I almost said expansion pack, in this princess gallery, the railings, they look really, really detailed and awesome. I'm really feeling here with the reflection from the lake and the bridge and the archways and the tower that this is turning into something really cool. Now it's time to build the inside, particularly the keep and some really tall towers. I prefer building when I can with build to prop turned off, which is why I'm setting up all these floating platforms here. Just decided to remove some of them because they do take up more memory than most blocks, but I'm just having a lot of them here though, so that I can just place blocks on top of them. The reason why I really like them is because I feel like the natural snap points are a lot easier to use than the smaller grid snap points. The inside of the castle, I start off covering with bricks, then it is time for the keep making. I spent some time considering how wide and how tall I wanted the keep to be. I tried and failed quite a bit before ending up with a solution here, so I decided that the width would be 9 blocks wide and a little bit longer from the front to back. I also wanted to have some other not as tall towers or whatever you want to call it on the castle. Parts of that will be that little square that I have on the right of the keep here. Then all I had to do was copy paste this all the way to the top and then add towers, roofs, windows, crenellation and whatever details that a castle would need to fit the title of a princess castle or a king castle, if you will. The tall roof that I'm building right here, I will copy paste and place on the front of the keep, and later on the top. It is a little bit difficult to stretch it out to the right height because you want it to be much steeper than normal and it needs to be stretched out to a specific shape in order to snap properly. But with a little bit of trial and error, it worked out in the end. I made some thin, yet very tall towers that I wanted to copy paste and put all over the place. They would be very tall, their tallness and thinness would give the building a feeling of being extremely big and spectacular, reaching all the way up to the heavens. I'll explain how the towers give that effect. They will be right next to a huge, thick, flat, boring looking-ish keep. And because they are tall and their windows are small, the the tower will look like a tiny detail compared to the keep, making it look like it's very, very far away. And thus, when looking at the castle from far away, looking up, the stuff that's all the way on the top is really tall towers, which gives it an effect of being big, and the thinness is like very far away, so it's like super duper tall and far away. It's so cool. There was, however, a bigger tower that I also made, but this would have details on each corner, which is really, really important when making big things like this. Make it detail, have some details there. Details that are going to make it look cool from far away. That's going to be the takeaway from this video, by the way. If you're watching this thinking, I'm gonna make a killer map or whatever, I'm gonna get featured 20 times, 5 features every day, you know, that's the lesson for you. Anyways, I copy-pasted many pieces of a wall from the Princess Gallery, and that wall had all the things that I wanted for this tower, basically. And I just put it on top of each other, and it worked out perfectly. The iconic Disney castle that you can see at the beginning of each Disney movie and in Disney World or whatever. I just googled Disney castle and I got something that has a gigantic tower to the right of a keep, and it looks kind of like this. The whole build was very inspired by that castle. Fortnite has a very interesting building system compared to many other games that I'm doing on this channel. Not saying better or worse, just different, interesting. Lots of options in this game actually. In the other games that I make videos on, there's often triangles that snap to squares, and the way that they snap to each other makes it so that you can kind of use the square shape and the triangle shape to kind of create your own little shape. You can make circle-ish shapes that are actually like 12-sided 12 tagans, you know. And then your whole build is basically just built from these geometrical shapes. This is not the case in Fortnite, however, because the only geometrical shape like that you have is really a square. You start off with a square grid, right? If you do not have build to prop on, you can only put things on that specific square grid, which initially is quite limiting, right? Because squares can get a little bit boring after a while. But then there's another thing that's introduced into Fortnite, and that is the fact that you can take things off this grid a little bit. You can stretch out your building pieces, right? And you can rotate them. And when you rotate them, then suddenly you can start building interesting shapes. But the thing is that you don't get the sort of snapping that is in those other games. And that is actually a really satisfying feeling sometimes, to be able to just make buildings with squares and triangles. But in Fortnite, you sort of just have to put things where you think they need to be, instead of having the natural geometry kind of just build your build by itself. Now in Fortnite you actually have to think about specifically where do I want these blocks, which opens up for a lot of possibilities actually. This is not without consequences though, the way that this building system works and how free it makes things, it also introduces a couple of difficult things. In particular, that when you copy paste things, which is an amazing ability to be able to do, by the way, copy pasting things makes things so much easier. But when you copy paste things and you're able to not have things specifically on a grid, then it gets a little difficult sometimes to copy paste it into the perfect position. Also, since you are carrying so many blocks at the same time, the angle for where you can see things, it's often difficult to see, am I placing this in the exact same position? And on top of that, the exact position that you want things in actually is often not possible. If you have built a lot in Fortnite, you might notice that sometimes the 32 grid snap is just not small enough. And even if it was small enough, it's so hard to get things on the exact grid. And sometimes you want things on a 1 degree angle and not like a 45 degree angle or 90 degree angle. This is all in all a very positive thing. This is just a problem that arises when a game gives you a lot of ways of building things, a lot of building pieces, a lot of abilities to build certain ways. Copy pasting, grid snapping, taking things off the grid, lots of stuff. All in all, it's a very, very good creative mode that Fortnite Creative has. Which is why I've made so many videos on this game. I probably have 50 videos like this on this channel. Once you're done watching this video here, I'd recommend just checking out my building of Hogwarts. You might have heard about that building. It's from Harry Potter. I made the whole thing in Fortnite Creative. Got pretty glorious. The link to that will be in the description in case you're curious. If you are still watching this and did not click to the end, I just want to say you are really awesome. Those that did click on the end, however, are still awesome, but they will not get the satisfaction of knowing this. By the way, I'm trying to get this channel to 200,000 subscribers before the end of 2020. So please subscribe and share if you feel so inclined. Together, we can make it happen. I'm just adding a few decorative things to this build before I show you a showcase of this build and also a full overhead view time-lapse. The stuff that I'm adding right now is stuff like a little grass here and there to make it a little green and lively, some bushes, roses, stairways, doors, more windows, lots of that. And some of that I cut out because it's a little bit boring and very tedious with all the decoration. I copy-pasted a lot from the inside of the Princess Castle prefabs. I did it in 2 rounds, since there were more than 100 props. I just copy-pasted the stair both times and deleted it at the end, so that I could put the second stair on the exact same spot as the first one, and then everything would be in the right position. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the showcase, and if you really enjoyed this content, please consider using code SvenP1205. If you want to visit this map yourself, the map code is on the screen right now. Flight is on, go take a look, and please enjoy the showcase.